Plugin of the week comes from Schwabe Digital. It's HiFAL. HiFAL is a plugin that is designed for controlling high frequencies or warming high frequency response. HiFAL stands for High Frequency Acceleration Limiter. Now, acceleration limiters were used back on cutting lathes, and the basic idea was to control high frequency response or to smooth it out, particularly to kind of control sharp peaks and the frequency response, sort of softening it a bit so that the cutting lathe can handle it better. Interestingly, cutting lathes, they spend the majority of the energy, right, or the power that goes into driving a cutting lathe goes to the high frequency response because of how rapid the cutting head has to move. And if that movement is too erratic or not controlled, it can overheat the head and cause all kinds of other problems, including a bad cut, right? So the idea here is a digital adaptation of that same basic concept. And what an acceleration limiter does is it kind of monitors the rate of change of a transient peak. So if that's a soft transient, then it will apply softer settings to it to control it. If it's sharper, then it will apply more aggressive settings. Now, there are many technologies that exist that kind of exhibit some of these characteristics. As you drive more energy into a tube, it will become more resistant and therefore create some form of saturation and softening of transient energy. Analog tape is another example of something that does this. As you drive more signal level, it will become more aggressive in terms of its resistance to that, and then also kind of round off peaks and do some control. Now, if you look up an acceleration limiter, which I did, you won't really find anything like some old, analog acceleration limiter made by Neumann or one of the companies that would make cutting lathes back at the time, although the technology is basically there. Now, what I recall from the days of having mixes mastered or a cut was that they would use a second head off the tape machine. And that could be the record head on a tape machine where it would grab the signal prior to the actual playback, and then that would be fed into the side chain of a limiter, maybe through a delay to get the timing exactly right so that you could anticipate any transient peaks. Because historically, one of the most difficult issues to deal with is that initial overshoot of the transient signal as it passes through. And where this would be applied would be on the high frequency spectrum. So this would be where most of the transient energy would exist and where it would come across most harsh and cause the most problems with the cutting lathe process. So how does this apply in the digital realm? Because we're not cutting vinyl here. Well, the idea here is to adapt or use that same principle as a way of creating a warming characteristic for the high frequency response, which I have always found to be true. And this is going all the way back to the 1980s with RDATs, the Sony F1 digital, which was recording, basically like RDAT technology, except for on a video cassette. And the harshness that was kind of there. Sony 3324 and 3348 tape machines, 16-bit technology. And I think, most analog engineers or people who were doing everything analog coming across this were sort of horrified at how horrible it sounded. But there was still plenty of analog technology to sort of soften all of that. Today, everything is digital. And while the resolution of things and you can work at higher sample rates and all this sort of stuff is improved vastly, to me, especially when operating at 44.1 or 48 kilohertz, there's a bit of something that the resolution on the high frequency response never really kind of sits right with me. Okay, so all of that said, this long lead in, this is a plugin that's designed to address that. So let's basically take a look at it, kind of do an overview of it, and then kind of run it through the paces and kind of see what it can do. So essentially we have presets up here, A/B for comparison. We can bypass the whole plugin up here. We have the input metering here. Now, when we actually run audio through, what you'll see is a sort of window. So you'll see kind of a frequency graph, but it's mostly high frequency information. And what you're doing is you're kind of working within a particular frequency range. mostly in the high frequencies. And so you can set the put the settings there, kind of figure out where you're having the issue and sort of target it, with high filter, low filter. And that's the area that will get processed, and the only area that will get processed, and everything else will be left alone. There's a secondary one, which is the parallel limiter. We'll get to that. So there's two primary sections. We have the main acceleration limiter, and then we have a parallel limiter, which we'll get into. So over here, what you see on the level is just those high frequencies, the zone that is set here, right? So if this is set at 4K and this is all the way off, to the up section, everything above 4K is what will show up on the meter here. We have a threshold control. So this allows us to set the threshold to achieve the limiting effect. We'll see gain reduction over here on this meter. We have a channel link, so we can make them completely independent of each other, left, right, depending upon the program material. That may help to open things up, make it wide, but it also may shift imaging. So you have to kind of be, use your ears basically to see what works best. Or you can have a complete channel link. By default, it comes up at 50%. You can adjust accordingly. We can link the left and right channels, or we can have them operate independently. This can sometimes work better if you're operating in MS mode, where maybe the side channel information, which shows up on the right column here, right? So this would be mid and side. I think I actually switched it the other way. This is mid side. Then this would give me the ability to sort of set that independent of the center information, which would most likely be louder. Not necessarily, but probably. Right, so we can operate it in left-right mode or mid-side mode, and we can link or unlink the sides. There are different meter resolutions depending upon the program material, right? So it, by default, that way you can see very low-level information if you have to see that for a quieter section, okay? Or for a louder section, you can move the meter up so the top meter is 0. You could solo up the left, right, or mid-side. So we have that capability there. We have attack and release settings. Now, these don't operate like normally you would have like some kind of a variable attack or release setting. And the idea being that it would be fixed, right? Or fixed to some degree. And what we have here is a processor which is basically changing its settings based on the incoming program material. So it's too sophisticated to sort of put into a slider type of category. So what he has here is a fast and a slow setting for the attack and a fast and a slow setting for the release. And then it's a matter of feeling out based on the program material what settings sound best. I would say that if you're operating with something that has like a lot of harsh, transient component to it, going with the fast attack and release might be a better way of kind of calming that down. If it's generally pretty good and you want a general more smoothing type of effect, then the slow attack setting might work better. And on the release side, you have to kind of feel out, again, based on program material, what works best. So we have the gain reduction meters here. You can listen to the delta, okay, which is the information that is being gain reduced, right? So you can listen to that. It's often very low in level. And we have a trim, which is the makeup gain, because obviously if we're compressing within a particular or limiting within a particular area, we may need to apply some makeup gain to make up for what's missing. Or you may want to bring more presence into a particular area, but you don't. But when you do so with an EQ, it comes across a bit harsh. This would basically give you the ability to kind of smooth it out and then get the balance of high frequencies that you want in. There are oversampling settings, right? So you can go through the different oversampling settings. I'm working with 8 times oversampling here, just so you know. When I go to 16, it's kind of crushing my computer. There's too much still going on in the mix to make that work. This, as described, is designed as a mix bus processor, although you can apply it in anything, and we'll get into a bit of that when we get to the parallel limiting. And it can also be used in mastering. Obviously, that would seem to be, just given its origins of the whole concept, would probably lead you to want to use it for mastering. And so effectively, it's just a kind of a small difference there. Well, I don't know, whatever. Maybe that's debatable. You can operate in linear phase mode or minimum phase mode. Okay, so probably work with linear phase unless that's an issue with the processing power. And then I believe there's a separate setting for offline processing. So you could set that so if you process or export offline, then your settings would be different if you need to monitor something and keep your computer working. We got trim control. We could turn the whole section off right from the power switch here. And then there's a parallel limiter. The idea of a parallel limiter, as it is described by Ryan, is that it is emulating a process that's been used by many people, but in particular the Motown thing. So I don't know if they had a particular limiter that they went through or whatever, or this is just some variation of using a Dolby noise reduction, A-type front end of it without the decoding, right? That would be the sort of classic thing to do it and compress it, and you would get all the extra high frequencies. I don't know exactly what that is, but essentially what he's doing here is with the parallel limiter, we're using the same acceleration limiter process. We could decide how aggressive it is with this, and then we can mix it in parallel. So this is like effectively something maybe akin to like a soft exciter, or that sort of exciting, kind of parallel effect that would bring in air or presence. So we'll kind of play with that a bit. And this section can be turned on or off here. And there's a little help balloon kind of thing if you like that. Also, you can click here and that'll take you to the manual and to the website to find more information about it. Okay, let's have a listen, kind of put it through its paces. I will leave the parallel limiter section off. Effectively, when you have this volume all the way off, no matter what you do with this, you're not going to hear anything, right? And we have separate windows up here, which will show the frequency content that's being affected. If you control click on this section, it will allow you to solo it up so we can hear it. And that's obviously helpful, so you can decide exactly what area of the frequency spectrum you want to affect. All right, so let's have a listen to it without any processing, and then just so we could kind of see some of the graphics here, and then we'll start to dive into some of the settings. So what I'd like to do with this section, or kind of for the song, is to sort of smooth out a little bit of the fuzziness that's kind of in there. So let's see what we can kind of get away with. Let's start by kind of soloing up this area here. See if I can highlight where that's coming from. All right, and then I can also work on the top end to kind of limit that. I'm going to leave that wide open here on the top end, so when you do that, it kind of grays out. And so anyway, you want to focus in on the area where you're working to start off with. Now let's kind of start with the threshold. We'll leave the basic slow and fast settings. This is just on the mix bus, and let's see what we got there. We have the warming effect here, but we're losing a little bit of gain in that frequency band. So I'm going to pull it up here, maybe a 0.5 dB. If we're following the gain reduction meter, see if that's helpful. what I'm hearing here with this is sort of interesting is that it feels like the clarity that's kind of brought in there helps to kind of bring out a bit of the depth. So instead of that high frequency area being a little bit fuzzy and kind of smearing the sound field, when this is in, what you'll hear is a sort of opening up of that space that kind of sits on the top half of the mix, right? Or that top end of the mix, kind of opening up a little bit of the air so there's some clarity. So let me just play that, see if you hear, check that out, see if you hear that. So, you know, if you can kind of get that vibe for it, it takes a little bit to kind of actually get into the detail of what it's doing, you know. Ryan being a mastering engineer as well as a mix engineer, and I do also mastering work as well as mixing work, that focusing on that detail, you know, is really critical to getting something to translate well. So I really like what this is doing, just straight up from that. Let's just notice if there's a difference here between going to a faster attack setting versus the slow attack setting. That might probably will give us more gain reduction here. I actually have not... all right, so that's A. I guess it's applying it to both. Okay, perfect. So I'll go to B here. Let's see, because I may need to adjust the threshold here. So I think I actually kind of like the faster setting a little bit better. And then obviously we could go to the slow release. So just do a quick A/B with that to see what that sounds like. Okay, so to some degree I prefer, although the fast keeps things a bit airier, and the release with the slow setting kind of smooths that out a little bit. I'm going to go with that because adding in the parallel limiter here, which would be the next thing, would be one way to kind of get the best of both worlds, or let's kind of see what we can do with it if we add that in. The other thing that we can do, which I don't think is necessary here, but for this particular thing, although I can kind of go through some of the settings here, which would be to operate in MS mode, unlink the two sides here and have separate settings for the mid and side. So let's just kind of do that a little quick. We'll kind of keep the same settings here that we liked and see what that's like. Now we still have some linking here, right? So let's just see. Maybe I'll let's see what happens if I keep them unlinked. That's interesting. It kept the 2 offset there in my left-right mode. Oh. Unless I did something wrong here, which is possible. It's possible that I kind of adapted it in kind of both modes here. Let me get this sort of relinked and reset here. Let's see if they come back together here. Nope. All right. Not sure if that's a bug. In left-right mode. Oh, wow. Okay, so I guess that is a bug. Interesting. Okay, so let's go back here to our mid-side. I had actually kind of preferred this anyway, so just roll with this, and hopefully it'll have that sorted out in the next revision. Maybe that's something that's going on here. Let's operate with the parallel limiter, and let's take a look at that. So with the parallel limiter, what we have here is an effect where essentially we're applying this same kind of process, but we're picking the area, right? So we have between 1K all the way up, so we can apply this presence wherever we want to, right? All the way up the frequency spectrum. Let's kind of see if we can, let's designate an area here where we want to add in, you know, a little presence frequencies, and let's just see what we can do here. So we'll start by soloing it up. So this will solo up just a parallel process. None of this is like, so these two things run in parallel to each other and then get blended back together. This determines how much of the parallel. So this is unaffected. This is not feeding into this. They're independent of each other, and then they get merged back together at output. All right. I'm not sure if I... Oh, no, I guess soloing it up would just hear the frequency. Okay, this is maybe too low in level. Let's just start with this and kind of adapt it in real time without, just for the purposes of the video, just because it's going to be like a bit too much to have to hear that. So let's see. So obviously this has like a very has a bit of a very smooth kind of exciter type of effect. Obviously you can kind of shape this a little bit more, mix in the amount that you want, get as aggressive as you like with it. Probably easy thing to kind of overuse depending upon the setting. You can also use this, you know, on a vocal track or on a vocal bus. If you're looking to bring air or presence, that's the basic concept or design or idea of it. Now, one of the questions people may have is like, oh, can't you just use a multi-band compressor to achieve the same effect? You know, set it basically to the range that we have here and apply the settings. And it's possible, depending upon the design of that multi-band limiter. And if that multiband limiter has sort of fixed attack and release settings and it's not adapting to the actual transients as they're sort of passing through and applying different settings to those transient peaks based on how sharp they're coming up or how soft they are, then that probably is not giving or achieving the same effect. I have not heard any multiband compressor that achieves effect that's like this, that what I've heard. And there are other acceleration limiter plugins out there. I haven't gone through all of them. That basic concept is not, Ryan's not the first one to do it here, but that his adaptation of it so far is very good. I almost want to say it's the best, but again, just having said that I haven't heard or listened to all of the other versions of this that are out there, I can't say that. There are some adaptability. There are some, like, there usually will have auto release settings and that sort of thing. Adaptive attack is a little bit of a different animal. So I think in that sense, it's kind of a different beast. And I think it's something you're probably going to have to play around with a bit to kind of wrap your head completely around exactly what it's doing. But to me, this resolves an issue that, or at least gets far closer than anything else that I've seen, that helps to sort of kind of warm up or sort of control or clear up the high frequency content without actually losing the air. In other words, preserving that clarity and that airiness that's important to opening up the rest of the mix and allowing you to kind of sort of shining the light on all of the other instruments, and particularly all the stuff that's going on in the RMS range and all the way down to the low end. It's that air up on the top that helps to open all of that up so you can see the clarity of it and the separation between the different elements of the mix. And anything that sort of smooths that out yet still allows me to kind of have a good amount of that air to achieve that effect, while kind of clearing up some of the fuzziness, I'm all in. And it's very easy for that stuff to get collected through aliasing artifacts and just through the fact that our resolution as we go up through the frequency spectrum gets worse, right? The representation of higher frequencies up in the 10 to 20K range is nowhere near the resolution that you're getting at lower frequencies based on the sample rate technology that we're using. Okay, a very cool one, sophisticated one, worth diving into. The actual display is very simple, very well laid out, but I think there's a lot under the hood as you start to really dig in. But I think it's absolutely worth checking out. There you have it, plugin of the week from Schwabe Digital, HiFAL.